welcome back to Becoming Dr. Baker. Today, I'm here with Angela Frazier, who I am so excited to have on the show. She is someone that I connected with about a few years ago through another public health group who just has a really great story and a passion for mental health and wellness, mental health promotion, women's empowerment. And so I'm excited to have you here, especially as a part of the Liberated Legacies series on my YouTube channel, which I have not added to recently, but I'm excited to now have another guest to continue that on. And as you know, that series is all about how people use their past pains, traumas, struggles to move forward and shine brightly in the future. So Angela, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I mean, we connected years ago, and this is actually really our first conversation, even though I follow your posts and everything. So Angela is a mental health influencer, which I love. I love the branding there. She is the author of a children's book called A Kid's Book About Suicide, and she's also the founder of Sisters in Public Health, which she's going to talk more about. But first, I just want to know, your story. I know that's hard to do in a very condensed amount of time, but I do want to know kind of how you found yourself in this intersection of public health and mental health, what inspired you to be here, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. I would take it back to getting my bachelor's. So I went to Portland State University. I got my bachelor's in health sciences and I minored in communications. I was on which is a lot, really similar for a lot of public health people, is we're usually on the route of medicine or nursing, and we take a left turn. So very similar to the other people's stories there. But I remember I was taking a global health class. I had a professor who named Dr. Dawn Richardson. She was a graduate of Tulane, very passionate about public health. So my mind was already kind of switching to public health. I then took a couple years off because I wanted to really get my feet wet. I didn't want to do the long, school stint and then graduate and not have that experience, which is very common. But for me, I knew I wanted to take that break. During that break, I actually, just 4 months before moving to Houston to get my MPH, I lost my mom. I lost my mom to suicide. So I was on this global health route. I was so passionate about, this is exactly what I want to do. I was set. I was so set. I just accepted admissions that month, and then got that call a few weeks later. And so the fact that it was suicide was it was embarrassing at first, but I can be quite honest, because it is something that is looked down upon, and there's a lot of unanswered questions. And I was like, I don't want this to be my story. This is not what I signed up for. And I can say that life was perfect before, because it surely wasn't. But I just felt like I had a path. But as time rolled on, I felt like that was a huge part of my truth and my story and my journey. And I just didn't feel like it was going to be helpful if I kept such a powerful story and message just with myself, because they say that, a lot of people's destiny is tied towards, your success and your story. Everyone is, impacting the next person, especially if it's in the public health field or the mental health realm. There is something that's going to be helpful to someone else. And so it took me about a year after losing my mom that I actually started to address the suicide part of the loss, right? And then from there, so much more has developed.
Gosh, oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I also wanted to say I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so, thankful for what you've been able to do and accomplish, post the loss, but also just want to sit with you in that. And thank you for sharing. So I want to know, one, this is kind of off the record, but I can maybe delete this part later. I want to know also, how and where did you find the strength from your mom's suicide to kind of start addressing it on a broader scale? Because like you said, it was embarrassing to begin with. Yeah. It was painful, really deep. how, where, and why did you decide to really dive into that?
Yeah. Well, I'm a very I'm an extrovert. So I already was someone who I'm very talkative, very loud. Like I'm always the center of things, and so it was naturally my personality to speak up. It was the opposite for that year of like being kind of quiet and not really talking about it. I really think that there's just a strong feeling that you have inside of you, and I always say that there is this Angela that was pre, my mom's passing, and then there's this post Angela, and I was already great, but then like I just felt like God like doubled me. Like I say it all the time. I just feel like I just like leveled up into this person that like I didn't really know was there. Yeah, like I'm telling you, like I'm like I was great before, but like I'm phenomenal now. There was just
I love it.
Yeah, there's the energy, and it just comes up. It happens, and a lot of people say like, "Oh, I can't imagine life without my parents." But well, I'm like, yeah, I mean, nobody really can. But like when you are dealt a certain cards, you just kind of have to play them, and you can choose to be quiet about it and not really address certain topics. But sharing my mom's suicide loss has built so many different friendships, so many relationships. Like I'm very empathetic towards anyone who experiences loss of a parent, loss at all, but surely like suicide loss again, because it has so many unanswered questions, and there's a lot that comes with that type of loss.
Yes.
But yeah, I just feel like I kind of just went into a tunnel vision and just got the strength that I mean, it's only God given. That's just the bottom line there. I couldn't have paid for it. I couldn't, it just, it was what.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to do that in my own life, speaking kind of like truth to power, using that inner conviction, the things that happen to us, and really using that to fuel, moving on in the future, and paving a way for others. So thank you for sharing that. I'm really interested in, so I think this is when I reached out to you on LinkedIn, but I saw that you have written a book, a children's book called A Kid's Book About Suicide. And I want to know kind of what made you focus on children as opposed to adults. What was, kind of your inspiration for creating this book?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. So I would say as far as suicide loss, the highest ratings are within white middle-aged men. However, there is a big number, and I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but for teenagers, and I know it's within like the top. I want to say like 8 causes of death, maybe the top 5 causes of death for teens. And so my thought process was, if teens, high schoolers and middle schoolers are already taking their life, then like we need to talk about this well before that, right? Like we can't wait until it's too late. We can't wait until 8th grade. We can't wait until 6th grade. Like we need to talk about bullying and childhood abuse and neglect and hunger and all these other things that kids face at a young age that we're not really addressing. And when I wrote the book, I wrote it from 2 different aspects. So I wrote it, one, to the kiddo who is like me, who has experienced suicide loss, because I wanted them to know that it's okay to have a lot of questions. It's also okay to be upset. Like I have not always woke up and been happy, with my mom. Like I miss her on a daily basis, but there's anger and frustration that comes from the way that she decided to leave this earth, because you left the only child, you left a daughter. I'll get married one day, I'll have kids one day, and like she now has missed out on so much. But there's a lot to that, and there's a lot to unpack there. The other part is that I really wanted to write to the kid that struggles with suicidal ideation, because there are these kids that are taking their life, and it's really unfortunate, but they are experiencing a lot of things that they, don't really have the right coping mechanisms. They may not know who to go to. So the book addresses that. It names different things. Like you can talk to your principal and your counselor and your teacher and your priest. It lets them know that they're not alone. It lets them know that they would be missed. And that's what, I wish my mom knew today, is that your ultimate decision to take your life affected so many people afterwards. There's now, in order for me to be at my ultimate best, I have to continue to seek support, whether that's individual counseling, whether that's attending suicide support groups that I attend, whether that's, connecting with friends and family. But I always will have to actively take care of myself, which I should, but there's another layer on top of that because of the certain loss that I've experienced, which is very unfair to me and anybody else that knew her. And I don't minimize her struggles. When I say this, I don't mean, I've gotten less angry with my mom over the years just because I realized that someone who is at the point of taking their own life, it has nothing to do with me or you, right? They have internalized a huge burden that, they're not, worthy of things, and this world would be better off without them, that they have decided that this world would do better without me. And that is a hell of a burden, right? Scary, and a hell of a way to feel. So I try to take away the anger and also sympathize with, my mom feeling a certain way for so long. And I commend her for making it to me being an adult, right? Because there's kids that lose their parents to suicide. So I flip it now and say, what a blessing it is that I got my mom for 24 years, because everybody doesn't get 24 parents.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You spit so much truth. I'm just what? Thank you for addressing the complex emotions that come with losing someone to suicide, that come with, someone who has suicide ideation. It doesn't happen overnight. And dealing with the after effects is a lifelong process, as I'm sure, and you're experiencing. So thank you for just acknowledging that, you're not just commemorating her life, afterwards, and that everything's all happy and fine. No, there's anger, there's pain and hurt. There's loss, that you miss, unanswered questions. And I think that's really important for people to know who have lost someone to suicide. You also said some really interesting things about children. And I think, in my work, I focus a lot on youth as well. And just knowing that that's such a vulnerable time period when you are going through these struggles of life. I was reading a study about racial discrimination. Even kids who are 3 years old can sense that they are being treated differently, just on the basis of their skin. And they recognize these inequalities and inequities at such an early age. And so that's compounded over time. Those internalized messages that you were talking about really get ingrained into us. And so for a child, where do you go? For a lot of people, their parents aren't a safe place. Teachers don't seem safe. Friends, you just don't know. And especially for Black children and youth, it's kind of stigmatized. I think you talked about that as well. It's on the hush hush. It's embarrassing to have these issues. So I'm taking it all in. I think it's really important for viewers to know and realize that suicide is something that needs to be addressed early in life rather than later.
Yes, definitely. I agree.
So moving a little bit away from that, I want to talk about women's empowerment because I know, as evidenced by your shirt, this is something that is incredibly important to you as well. Not only women's empowerment, but women's amplification, just, that we are awesome, that we have such contributions to this world that go unacknowledged. And so I want to hear about your inspiration for founding Sisters in Public Health and what that organization is all about.
Yes. So when I moved here, again, I just lost my mom. So I moved to Houston to get my MPH, and I really wanted to build a sisterhood. I'm a part of a sisterhood. I am an AKA, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So, yeah. So it's so, yeah, I love it. It's so important to have sisterhood. Like, I have come so far in life because of my sorority sisters. It's just, I don't know how to explain it other than like sisterhood and women empowerment is just phenomenal. And so I was thinking when I was moving here, like, I need to develop something, a support system in Houston. And so it really started off as, like, we crack up all the time, the board, because they all came to the very first event. It was in January 2017, and it was just a room I had rented, and I put, like, a flyer out. The first flyer has, like, my Gmail on it. So funny. And, like, it's like, oh, I crack up when I look at that. I'm like, oh, my gosh, it's come so far. And it was 30 people. Like 30 women came, and we did a huge circle, and we kept having to, like, make the circle bigger because people kept coming, and we just talked. It was so good. We just talked. We laughed. We cried. We talked about, like, the importance of, like, filling ourselves back up as we give so much within, like, the public health world. People talked about, like, hey, you know, I'm in my second year of my MPH, about to graduate, not sure exactly what I want to do yet, or people on the doctorate program, just so many different things that we were able to sit and discuss. And then after that first one, they were like, oh, when are we meeting next month? And I'm like, okay, like, don't push it. So I was like, I don't know. So I said, okay, well, you know what can Angela commit to as a graduate student? I can commit to a quarterly meetup. So I started to do quarterly meetups. Again, same attendance, it was awesome. And then once we graduated, you know, because MPH is a 2-year program, we graduate, and then I started from there. I said, well, I should share it on my social media. So I should share it on my social media and, like, just plan, like, at, like, a pizza place, and people start coming from other places, you know, like students who were just interested in public health, people who had kind of heard about it from the school. And then I did a really, really, really smart thing, and I trademarked the name. And that is, like, I got my trademark. That was one of the best things that I ever did, because I mean, people's names can be taken all the time, and that is really unfortunate. But I trademarked it, and then I eventually, it's funny, people kept saying, make it a nonprofit. And I'm like, I'm not interested in making it. I'm telling you, I was not interested, and I thought it for years. We just made it a nonprofit in October 2020. I have
congratulations.
Thank you. No, that's too official. That's too much. But it was awesome. Created a board for it. Our vision is to connect all women in public health. Our mission is all about advancing the next generation of women in public health, and we do that by we have a lot of educational events. So we have a development series quarterly, and they range from, my gosh, talking about epidemiology and biostats, and we have providers come and speak, and we're in a virtual world, which is awesome because people tune in from all over. And then also, one of my favorite thing is we do a scholarship. So we do an annual $1,000 scholarship. This year we're doing 2 $1,000 scholarships. The application just closed June 18th, but the cycle runs from typically March to June. We award in August for that next school year. And eligible students are those in an MPH or a doctorate level program. And of course, you know, you can check out our website for more information there. But I love it. We now have chapters. So it just started in Houston, but now we have 6 chapters. So we have Atlanta, Baltimore, Chicago, Houston, New Orleans, and Philadelphia. And it is bigger than me. It was my baby, and, like, now it's like my toddler and my middle. It's like it continues to grow. I'm like, what?
I love it.
What? I love
oh my goodness.
My favorite. I say all the time, I probably will never do it as full-time work because I love it that much that I don't want it to ever feel like a job. So I'll continue to do engagement. I'll continue to, you know, work in the public health, healthcare world. And I tell people all the time on our board, the chapter chairs, if this feels like a job, say something, because it shouldn't feel like a job. It should really feel like a community, you know. And it's grown. Last year, our Facebook group was at like 300 members. We're now at like 2.4K members, and it's just a network.
Nice.
It's a network. It's a community. It's women engaging. They're asking questions. They're posting resources. They're posting flyers. It is by far one of my better ideas.
I love that because it takes a few ideas before you land one that's gonna, take you far. So
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and you said so many great things. I think for me, listening as someone who is also like a creative and wants to develop these things, it's like, how did you find the strength and courage to just do it? Because I feel like so many of us stop ourselves before we even go forward with the idea.
Ooh.
So how did you know, okay, this is an idea worth putting into the world?
Yeah. So my mentor always tells me this, and I tell all my girlfriends and anybody who'll hear me say this, start before you're ready. Wait till we're ready. And like, there's no such thing. It's kind of like the thing about like, oh, people are like, oh, I'm going to wait until this and that and that and this to have a kid. It's like, there's really no such thing as like, boom, this is like the time to have a kid. This is the time to have a family. Like, I make this much money now. Like, I don't really believe in anything like that. I'm like, if I want it, like, I'm just going to start it, and it's just, it'll just, pan out to what it's supposed to be. But I just knew that, like, I wanted sisterhood, and I'm not someone that's really big on, like, a numbers thing. And I'm more of like hey, like, I need the quality here. So I really didn't care if 3 people came, if 3 people came, because I've had great conversations when it was, the 30 people in attendance, and then there's been times where I've hosted stuff and 2 other people have came, and we've had just as great conversation because exactly who was supposed to be there was there, So
exactly.
People get caught up in numbers. And they get caught up on what things look like, and I'm just someone who I'm like, hey, this is exactly what it's supposed to be. This is, you and I are supposed to be right here, right now, having this conversation. That's how I look at life.
Right. I think that's such phenomenal advice, because right now people are very concerned with numbers. I know as a content creator, I've fallen into that trap as well. Like, okay, only 6 people viewed this video. It must be horrible. Nobody wants to see it, but it's like, actually the people who are meant to watched it. The people who are meant to come to your events come, and who find Sisters in Public Health are meant to be there. I think that's so important too, that, as long as it's a passion project and it's not, something where you're seeking clout or validation, your work will speak for itself. The message will speak for itself. So you are the prime example of that. You've been so successful.
Thank you.
So I think, my last question is just, what are you looking forward to next? What are the next big things for Angela? And even you could take it a step further, where do you see mental health going? The field of mental health or children's mental health? Take it and run with it, whatever that question was. It's kind of a pitiful question, but what is next?
Yeah, when I think about what's next, I think about how I want to get my book out there. I really want to see it in schools. I want to see counselors have it. I want to see more conversation around mental health in the school system. My gosh, it's just where it needs to be. I want to see more mental health conversation in churches, which I've had the pleasure of going to speak at churches. That's my ultimate favorite platform to speak at, because we know that church leaders have a huge impact on their congregation. And we also know that suicide is looked down upon in a lot of different religions. So I really like that conversation there for sure. And then as far as like Sisters in Public Health, I just want us to keep growing and connecting. I also believe that if things grow too fast, they crash fast. So Angela has to pace herself. And most recently we put together like our 5-year strategic plan now that we're an official nonprofit. And we're looking at like, what does this look like? What is what cities and states do we see ourselves in? Do we see ourselves international at some point? What does our scholarship look like, and how will that grow? And it's in a good place. It feels good. It feels chewable, but I know it will continue to expand.
That's phenomenal. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for you. I would love to see your book in schools everywhere because, you know, that's where I first started having mental health struggles with depression, probably when I was about 11, 12 years old. So if we could just get that out and like let kids know that this is something that everyone feels and is preventable, I think that that is just incredibly important. So I wish you the best on that and hoping that that dream comes true.
Thank you.
And of course, I'm going to link everything is in the link at the bottom of this video to Sisters in Public Health, to where to find your book, to your social media. I know you do a lot of speaking, so please reach out to her. As you can tell, Angela is a phenomenal and passionate speaker about mental health and wellness. And I think that wraps it up for our conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course.